So I introduce the third speaker of today, Milana Iliushina. She's professor for Middle Eastern history at St. Petersburg University, where she also studied, and her main research focus is Mamluk history. She got her PhD in 2009 at St. Petersburg University. And she will be talking today on how long before obtaining the throne, the factor of time in Mamluk's career under the Circassian Sultanate.
Thank you very much for introduction, dear students. Dear colleagues, well, my presentation is about the factor of time in the Mamluk political career. The nature of the Mamluk political career is deeply rooted in the very character of the Mamluk Sultanate, where the transfer of power, especially in the Circassian period, was not determined by the principle of succession. It was only Barkuk's son Faraj and 8 short-lived and mostly nominal Circassian sultans who inherited the throne from their fathers. The other 16 rulers had to pass through certain stages in their career before they could assume supreme power. Each step of this path, as well as the whole journey to the throne, required time. An influential and ambitious emir had a good chance of becoming sultan one day. Success depended on a number of factors, of which we are going to discuss only one, namely the factor of time. Some distinguished works on the history of Mamluk Egypt have convincingly demonstrated that political success, stability of reign, and the ruler's authority largely depended on the power and influence of the sultan's own household. Creating such a household was by all means a matter of time. Let us address the career lines of some Mamluk sultans who were in power for relatively long periods. It took Al-Muayyad about 30 years to obtain the throne, Jakmak about 50, Kansuh al-Guri more than 20. It took Kansuh al-Guri another 5 years to get rid of his rivals and to suppress the perpetual insurgencies. Az-Zahir Kansuh had a spectacular career. He was brought to Egypt as a slave in 1492, and as early as 6 years later, he was already sultan, although for 2 years only. A quick career rise, together with a lack of steadiness and continuity, made it necessary for emirs to prove fit for their posts in an odious political struggle. So, in 1377, Yilbuga Nasiri reached the rank of Amir al-Mia Muqaddim al-Alf, while Barkuk was not yet even Amir Ashara. However, a year later, Barkuk was promoted straight to Amir Tab al-Khana, bypassing the rank of Amir Ashara. Soon he was Amir Ahur and became Atabak at the end of 1378. Immediately after this, Yilbuga was arrested, spent some time in prison, and then was appointed governor in Tripoli, far away from Cairo. These measures must have been meant to ensure against future antagonism from Yilbuga, and Yilbuga was not the only one left behind by Barkuk. As a result, Barkuk would later lose his throne. One had to pay for reducing the career length and the time of struggle for the throne, not infrequently by having their time on the throne reduced. It seems Quite logical, isn't it? And proved by facts. However, let's try to see the whole picture. The diagram shows the approximate, roughly rounded figures, yet it provides a graphic representation of the correlation between the duration of rule and the career length from becoming an emir to acceding the throne. This data forces us to acknowledge that the principle we mentioned above, that the longer a Mamluk held the emir's rank, the more opportunity he therefore had to gain experience in politics and to create a household of his own, and the more secure his position on the throne subsequently was. This principle was not absolute. A lengthy career did not guarantee political success. Ali Ashraf Janbulat, like Qaid Bey, advanced to the rank of emir about 10 years prior to becoming sultan, and his career as a Mamluk lasted nearly 20 years, like that of Barkuk or Kansuh al-Guri. But unlike these sultans, Ali Ashraf Janbulat was able to keep the throne barely for 6 months. Yalbay, Tamur Buga, and Kansuh Hamsumiya were emirs for 28, 25, and 23 years, respectively. It was longer than the corresponding career stage of each of the Circassian sultans who came to power independently, except Jakmak. Still, a long career as an emir brought neither Yalbay nor Tamur Buga or Kansuh Hamsumiya a smooth continuance on the throne. The diagrams demonstrate that neither a protracted term of service as an emir nor an extensive overall career span could guarantee the stability of reign, although a steady career growth did play a part in reaching political success. The turning point in the Mamluk political career was the obtaining of the position of atabek. It was those emirs who became atabeks that would later occupy the throne. If the power was nominally vested in an underage sultan who inherited the throne, which was a rather common case in the Mamluk Sultanate, the atabek would normally function as a regent and earn the title of Mudabbir al-Mamlika. In the Circassian period, the atabek did not always operate as a regent. As it was clearly shown by Henning Zievelt, in those cases, it was the regent who would emerge as a central political figure with a considerable chance to occupy the throne. Precisely such was the turn of the events preceding the rule of Tatar and that of Barzbay. By the late 15th century, the position of atabek had gradually lost its high status in the Mamluk political hierarchy. The greatest influence was now enjoyed by the emir who concurrently held a number of posts, ad-Dawadar al-Kabir, Wazir, and Ustadar. Nevertheless, since it was the position of atabek or regent that was crucial for the political career of a potential sultan throughout the 15th century, let us focus on the length of term spent by Mamluks in this post. Jakmak had been appointed as atabek 3 years before he seized upon the throne. Inal had been holding the same rank for 8 years before he became a sultan. Khoshkadam, Yalbay, Tamur Buga, and Qaid Bey were atabeks less than 1 year. Was it a sign of time going faster in the last decades of the Circassian Sultanate? The answer will probably be negative. Al-Muayyad was atabek, and Tatar and Barzbay were regent merely months before accession to the throne. However, we believe that Jakmak's and Inal's longer service as atabeks deserves closer attention, as the rise to supreme power of these veteran atabeks can be interpreted as a sign of political stability and succession, as a tendency towards a smoother transition of power. Meanwhile, periods of a faster pace of time did occur in the Mamluk history. Like any other form of social process, political change can be characterized by a higher or lower tempo. Excuse me. The most challenging period in the Amir's career came with a new sultan. It was then that new opportunities opened up for Amirs to compete for supreme power. This is why it was of less importance how long this or other Emir had been Atabek, Mudabir al-Mamlaka, or at the end of the 15th century, Ad-Dawadar al-Kabir, Wazir and Ustadar. It was crucial to have secured that position and to remain in it at the time of the ruling sultan's death or soon after it. On the contrary, only in rare occasions would a protracted service as a tabak lead to supreme power. Some natural reasons had a part to play too. Thus, Yashbek al-Mushid became a tabak in 1439. He retained this position for 6 years and died after a protracted illness without having had a chance to compete for power, as he died when Jakmak was at the peak of his might. It was not indeed an easy task to maintain the post of Atabek until the death of the ruling sultan. Unless the power was passed to the heir, the choice of the next sultan was in the hands of the council of the most influential emirs. This implied that, in fact, the emirs withdrew at least for a while from the struggle for power and were prepared to support the newly chosen sultan. In return, they were appointed to prestigious and sought-after positions, and their interests were guarded by the ruler. A breach of this agreement by either side resulted in conflicts of various proportions. An important role then was played by the Atabek, who could either lead the disaffected emirs against the ruler or support him. The Atabek's operations were consequently under the close scrutiny by the Sultan, and the slightest doubt in the Atabek's loyalty provided a sufficient reason to arrest, exile, or execute him. In other words, he posed a possible challenge to the ruling Sultan. Let us see some examples. Kara Demirdash al-Ahmadi was appointed Atabek by Barkuk's order in May 1389. 3 weeks later, he supported Yelbuga Nasri's revolt against Barkuk. In 1392, he was arrested and a year later was executed by Barkuk's order. Kamush Bugal Hamawi was appointed Atabek in 1390. 7 years later, he was arrested by Barkuk's order. He died 17 days before Barkuk's death in Alexandria's prison, and he probably was poisoned. And one more example. Emir Khosrow was appointed Atabek by Al-Adil Tuman Bey's order, and in the next year was killed by Al-Adil Tuman Bey's order. Thus, the task of remaining in the post of Atabek was not an easy one, not only because the Sultan could be endowed with a longer life than the Atabek, but also because the Sultan himself could deprive an overly influential Emir, if not of life, then at least of the high post. There was yet another important time-related factor in an Atabek's career. It was the factor of age. A case in point is the life of Teymuraz Ash-Shamsi. He was a Mamluk of Barzbey and was granted freedom while Barzbey was still living. He was appointed Atabek in 1495. By then, he had enjoyed an extensive, progressive career, had gained a wealth of political experience and authority, and felt a keen desire for supreme power. Teymuraz Ash-Shamsi's appointment as Atabek took place just months before Qaid Bey's death, at the most favorable moment for the final, ultimate career leap. but Tumuraz was nearly 80 then, too advanced in years to compete with younger and more energetic emirs. One of them, Kansuh Hamsumiya, succeeded in having Tumuraz arrested just days before the death of Qaid Bey, thus clearing his way to the throne. Age, in our opinion, played a certain part in the career of Azbek Mintatah. He maintained the post of Atabek for 27 years throughout most of Qaid Bey's reign. A year before Qaid Bey's death, Azbek had to leave the capital. He returned to Cairo about a year before the death of Qaid Bey's son, Anasir Muhammad. Time seemed to favor Azbek. He would make a worthy successor, and with Anasir Muhammad gone, the emirs offered Azbek the throne. However, being very senior in age, he was about 85, Azbek rejected the offer. A brief look at the statistics suggests that the most favorable age to accede the throne fell between 40 and 65, with a clear period of the Sultanate's aging. Jakmak, Inal, Khoshkadam, Yalbay, they all were over 60 at the time of their accession, with Jakmak and Inal having served as Atabek longer than any other Mamluk ruler. This trend towards aging thus coincided with the rise to power of more experienced Atabeks, who had been the mainstay of the ruling sultan for several years. By contrast, the development of succession principle coincided with the rise of comparatively young 40 to 45-year-old sultans, Barkuk, Almay, Tatar. The reign of Barzbey can be viewed as a period of evolution towards relative stability and succession in power transition. The first crisis of the established power transition system led to the rivalry of younger candidates, and the throne was taken by the 55-year-old Qaid Bey. After the 28 years of his rule, the second crisis made way for the young once again, the 50-year-old Kansuh Hamsumiya, the 40-year-old Ala Shevjan Bulat and Aladil Tuman Bey, and the 30-year-old Az-Zahir Kansuh entered the struggle. However, this time the victory was won by Kansuh al-Guri, who was about 60 when he took the throne. Thus, the periods of the establishment and the crisis of the succession system saw the rise of power of younger 40, 50-year-old sultans. Returning to the duration of career of the emirs struggling for power, let us stress once again that political success required a combination of two time-related factors. Firstly, a lengthy and continuous career, and secondly, having obtained or maintained the most prestigious position among the emirs by the time of the ruler's death. In the latter case, much depended on the turn of events, while political success could be guaranteed by neither of the factors alone, nor by both of them together, even combined with other favorable circumstances. The age Mamluks were living in was too rich in catastrophes, dramas, and surprises. Having to deal with the aura of discontinuity and to find continuities beneath the dramatic changes made an impact of the perception of time and its value in Mamluk society and the idea of past, present, and future in the Mamluk Sultanate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Milana. Please.
Really interesting. Thank you so much for making the data come alive also. I have a question about whether everybody wanted to be sultan. Isn't that important to consider in making sense of the data? Don't we have to think about maybe somebody preferred to remain in a position that was less?
Yes, absolutely so. Of course, not all of the emirs and even not all of Atabeks or high-ranking emirs wanted to be a sultan. For example, this Azbek Mintatah, the last one, I think he hasn't had keen desire to be a sultan like the previous one. Of course not. Yes, they're different, like all us. Thank you for your question.
Yes, please.
It's very interesting that you are trying to find trends. There is an institution, which is the Sultanate, and then there are bureaucracy. So there is a degree of stability, but maybe there's also a degree of chaos at the top level. But I was wondering if you actually, with your data,
We have to stop quarter
have you
before.
run a statistical regression, trying explanatory variables, even dummy variables, yes, no variables. No, not with the statistics.
Statistics. Thank you very much.
That really, I mean, yes, we would like to supply explanations, but let's assume that, life is just out of our control and there's something, guiding it. Maybe you can find this.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. We all know, the colleagues, that Disraeli says there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. So my purpose was to take in point one more factor in the Mamluk political career, the factor of time, because we do not always think about all the factors together. Probably one we take in point the family ties or households or something else, but I'd like to say that we should consider this factor too. I think so. Thank you for your question. Thank you, colleagues.
The social aspect, marriage, intermarriage, and clusters of Mamluks. I'm sure you are aware of it, but how did you link it? Because in matters of experience and lengthy, time of, okay, it assured one to be a Mamluk even, to be a Sultan when they are 80. And as I understand it from you, young age was not a good criteria, even if you are ambitious. So how can you plan between the two in comparison with clusters of power? So is it age and time means more loyalty and more intermarriage and more whatever you want to get, or to compare the data, the beautiful data?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question. It is very interesting to compare different factors in the Mamluk political career. For example, this family ties or marriage ties with the factor of time or age or length of the career. But I hope it will be the matter of my next presentation. Thank you for your idea. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay, I thank you all once again. It was a very, very nice first panel. And we are ahead of time, so take your time with the coffee break, please.